Okay, so we are going to take a look at some additional geopolitical conversation. This guy right here, Andrei Telizhenko, he is a whistleblower from Ukraine, and he was there in the government at the time of the coup in 2014 with Victoria Nuland, that just lovely, wonderful woman. Wait a minute. Lovely, wonderful. Let's see on. There we are. Okay. So I want you guys to hear this. I may have to adjust the volume so it might be loud at first. So let's hit it.
Trump is talking about, because what's wild about it, the entire time Trump is like, dude, I'm trying to get a deal. I'm trying to get a ceasefire. You have no cards. And what Trump is trying to communicate to him is correct. You've lost the war. You are literally trying to pull kids, 18-year-olds, into the combat zone in order to fight. That's how bad things are. And just to make the point clear, Vance pointed.
It's not 18-year-olds, it's 18-year-olds. Okay.
Out, you are dragging people and throwing them in the vans because you are in manpower shortages. And here's an example. I mean, I have a few of these. I've been watching these clips for months now. This is a mom trying to keep her kid from being dragged. And look at this. I mean, this has been taking place over all of Ukraine, by the way.
Every day, all over Ukraine.
On this one, the guy's walking his dog. And they snatch him from walking his dog. Can you imagine that? You go out, take your dog for a walk, and these goons grab you off the street, throw him into the van, and leave the dog. This is screaming. Like, this is... Explain how this works. So, how do they know who they're grabbing? Like, I'm walking my dog. Okay, how do they know who I am when I'm walking my dog to grab me and take me to the front lines?
They don't. What is happening?
Arbitrary people.
Yeah, look, how it works. These guys are with the support of the police. This is the so-called military police, the Sakha, they call them in Ukrainian, and they have no legal authority overall because there's no law for them. That's one thing. So these guys are illegal, but they are the Zelensky's army to keep everybody scared. Additional with the Secret Service of Ukraine that's having Nazi camps around and concentrated camps that are for people who want peace and killing journalists like Gonzalo Lira. And these are for the normal people who are not speaking out but just out there. So there are men in Ukraine that are been living in their houses for 2 years in their apartments. Their moms come and bring them groceries because they cannot get out into the street because they're going to get taken to the front line.
Well, these guys. I want to nail this down. It's not like this is Bob Cobb and we have Bob Cobb on our list to get. This is okay.
No, this is random. Okay. This is a random. They see a guy saying, "Oh, he's the age between 25 and 60, or even younger than that," and they go and get him. That's it. They don't care who it is. There's some men being taken off the streets who are with their children. The children are being left on the street alone, and they've been taken to the front to the military police headquarters. So this is what had happened. So what they're doing is they are with the support of the police. The police is backing them up. These guys are running around randomly around people's houses, apartment buildings, or in vans driving around. Or sometimes when I heard stories, there's people on the bus stop. Man going to work in the morning because some people do need to go to work. They have no other choice. They cannot hide. They don't have the money or the funds or the family to support them. So some do go to work, and there's men on the bus stations, bus stops, and there's a regular bus stops by, and they think they're going to go to work, but no, they're out of that bus. The military police, where the police comes out and drags 20 men right into a bus, and they basically surround them. 20 people surround these 20 guys, and they just drag them in and go away. And these guys go sent to the front lines within from 2 days up to 2 weeks. These guys do not get training. The training they have, they live in a field because there are no military headquarters or camps for them to live in. So basically, it's a field with tents, without no bathrooms, no showers. They're there from 2 days up to 2 weeks. They're not being fed properly. They don't even have even cutlery kits or like nothing. They're just there cutting out plates from bottles and getting fed like whatever. Even in jail, they're being fed better.
Wow.
That's the footage I've been seeing from people who are there, and they've done them sent to the farm. They give them some uniform, a machine gun with the 30 bullets, and then they get sent to the farm. That's it. That's what it is. And they die within a week because they don't have no training or nothing. And if they try to surrender to the Russian forces, they get shot in the back by the Azov battalion. So this is the reality in Ukraine. This is the so-called democracy. This is Zelensky sitting in the White House. He should not only be shouted at, they should have arrested him for crimes against humanity. That's what the White House and the state administration should have done. Not only for crimes against humanity, but also arrested him for the taxpayer money that he basically, the U.S. taxpayer money that he put into his pocket. And then investigate him. That's what they should have done.
That's going to be the interesting part. Because now that they pissed Trump off, he's talking about investigations. People are screaming for investigations into where did the money go. Because, Zelensky pointed out, well, it's like $100 billion that we didn't get. And so Trump came out, hey, okay, if you didn't get $100 billion, we need to know where the money went. And that is going to be one of the most fascinating things. I want to play another clip for you, though, to get your take on. This is Trump talking about trying to make a deal. Zelensky being a petulant child.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go.
When? I never heard that. I said, listen to him. He's yelling back at these guys. Wow, this is what pisses me off the most.
Litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on out here. I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Does he speak like that just for the hell of it?
It's going to be a very hard thing to do.
That clip is fascinating because it's an intervention. Like he is. So in the reporting in the United States, in Time magazine, they pointed out that Zelensky was delusional. They call him messianic. They said he is out of touch with reality. And Trump is like, you are losing. Your people are dying. What is wrong with you? Why don't you want a ceasefire if you can get a ceasefire? Meaning, if we could stop the bullets from flying. By the way, Russia's not going to accept a ceasefire, but whatever. Trump is like, if you can stop it, you should stop it. With Trump's idea being, if we can stop the bullets, then we can maneuver from there with at the very least your people not dying. And he is like, nope.
This showed everybody's face.
Yeah.
Zelensky's face, the Europeans' face, who wants war and who wants peace. Yeah, maybe the Russians would not go for the ceasefire, but at least they are willing to sit down and start talking.
Right.
The same thing with negotiations. You have to compromise on your pride and sit down and start talking. That's what Zelensky came to power with, and he lied. And that's what he doesn't. He thinks he's being backed by globalists and by the European Union that will continue his war. Because for Zelensky, the stoppage of the war means his political or maybe physical death. Because everybody will understand what happened and what he did to the country, and he's done. So that's why he needs this war to continue, not only for his masters that want to make money on this, but for himself. So Trump's saying, and he said, look, you don't want to, he showed who Zelensky is, that he does not want peace because this is being happening behind closed doors all the time. Nobody saw this. Nobody understands who Zelensky, how he acts. I personally know, I've been talking to Prime Minister Fico's team, and I know that Zelensky was threatening to Prime Minister Fico for the last 2 years, the last year and a half.
Threatening Fico?
Politically, not physically, but politically, that Ukraine is going to go against Slovakia, that Slovakia cannot do anything, that they're being backed by Washington, etc., etc. And this is how Zelensky talks to foreign leaders. Can you imagine how he's talking to Trump, the person and the president of the United States who's financing him, how he's talking to people who's not financing him, or financing him but in much lesser proportions. Zelensky doesn't even care about those people. That's for a great example. And Trump showed Zelensky's face.
What is his motivation? Like, is it because there are several ideas that I have, and I want you, because you've met Zelensky, you know him better than I do. Is it he's just committed cognitively to the war? Is it he feels he was led down a path? Meaning at the point where the U.S. and Europe is like, we're going to back you for as long as it takes. We're going to give you all the money. We're going to give you all the weapons. We're going to give you all this stuff. And from his point of view, it's like, okay, you guys told me you're going to back me, and now you're pulling this nonsense or pulling out of the war. Is it that he thinks he's going to be killed or imprisoned at the end of the war? Like, what do you think is the primary motivation for him to act this way?
Look, you have to understand, Zelensky doesn't think like he's like a president of a country. He's not a statesman. He doesn't think about the country or the people or anybody else around the globe. He thinks about himself. I know who he is. He is a bully. Like, by himself, how he acts. He's a drug addict, a bully, and that's what he is. He actually mentally a disabled person in a very bad way, not in the way of healthy, but in a broken way. That's what he is, and he was given the power to lead this war with the West. He was told that he's going to have the support of the West for this war in 2019. Right. He committed to this war to the Brits in 2019. That's his problem, and he understands that he's going to be killed or physically destroyed, politically destroyed, whatever, if this war ends. So that's why he needs to stay in power. That's why he doesn't want to have elections. Doesn't want to go away. He's standing his ground. He thinks that he's been backed by the globalists, by the Nulands and the Europeans. That they're going to continue giving him the money that he needs, but they cannot because Europe doesn't have the money. But he doesn't understand that he's being fed lies. He doesn't think about when people think. Even I've been talking to different people around the globe, and I've been telling one thing to everybody: you have to understand. This guy doesn't think as the president of a country, doesn't think about his people. If he did, this would have been over. That's why everybody's like trying to tell him, this war is bad, you're losing. Right. And he first of all, he doesn't understand. Second of all, he doesn't want to understand because he thinks only about himself. He said, what's in it for me? I want to stay in power. I was told that I'm going to come out a hero. I'm going to live as a hero. I'm going to have all the money that I got. Nobody's going to try to investigate me because I'm a hero and I broke down Russia. No, he didn't break down Russia. He failed to keep Ukraine safe. It was his obligation not to have to start this war. It was his obligation as a country that doesn't have a nuclear capability to sit down on a table with a country that has nuclear capability. And first and second of all, the country that we were part of for more than 350 years. Yeah, 350 years. We were part of Russia, Russian Federation, the Soviet Union. We were one nation. We were much closer than the Belarusians are with the Russians and anybody else from the Soviet Union. We have families on both sides, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters living on both sides of the border. So this is what Ukraine is. They should have sit down and talk. Russia was open to sit down and talk. Give us just a promise. Ukraine is not going to join NATO, and we're not going to do anything. But no, everybody said Ukraine's going to join NATO. They put it in the Constitution. Zaluzhny, the chief of the military armed forces in 2021, before the war, he said, I'm going to drive a tank throughout Moscow. What is this? Who are these people? They're warmongers. They wanted this war. They were provoking this war to make money for themselves and for their owners. Zelensky was promised a political career. Zelensky was promised a political career and billions of dollars. He's a billionaire. He maybe got more money than Trump has, but Trump got them legally, and his family is owning business legally. On the other hand, we have a dictator who's a billionaire. That's why he's acting this way, because he is a bully, and he's thinking about not that his country needs sound. That's what people need to understand what they need in Zelensky. He's not a statesman.
Arestovich pointed out that Zelensky was going to be prosecuted at the end of this war. Do you think that's true? That once this war ends, and again, I got to be honest, I don't know what Ukraine is going to look like at the end of this war. Mark Sloboda, because Trump went with this idea that I'm going to get a deal, I'm going to get a deal. It doesn't seem like Zelensky wants a deal, nor does it seem like Europe wants a deal. If the U.S. pulls its resources away, then Ukraine is going to collapse. And there's a question of how far does Russia go? Are they going to go to the Polish border? If so, then Ukraine is non-existent, or it's something else. If, though,
I don't think so.
by chance, there's some kind of deal, will the next leader, the legitimate leader of Ukraine, prosecute Zelensky in the way that Zelensky has been going after his political opponents?
We have to understand Ukraine and what Ukraine is part of. It was historically part of the Slavic Russian world. There's the Anglo-Saxon world, and there's the Slavic Russian world. Nobody's going to the Anglo-Saxon world trying to get Ottawa to join China or Russia or whatever. That's nonsense. The same thing here. The United States needs to pull out of Ukraine. If Trump also wants to move forward fast, and after what he saw, and hopefully understands what Zelensky is now, and show to the world, it's not just about what if America is going to pull out, Ukraine is going to fail. No. If America is going to pull out, and we're going to have a neutral government in power in Ukraine that will lead throughout these negotiations with Russia and Washington, saying that
if you know the not translation, the closed captions are a bit screwed up. I hope you guys are finding that if you're watching that.
Putting a neutral government that will have no intelligence agencies of the United States in Ukraine or foreign intelligence agencies, have a new embassy, reformed U.S. embassy with the new Trump administration there and other embassies. That's the only legal grounds. Basically, have some sovereignty give some sovereignty for Ukraine, and the neutral government will make a peace deal on its own with Russia. Or it will keep Ukraine fully intact as whatever is left of it, and lead it as a neutral country. That will be also a gain for everybody. Or Ukraine will choose to join Russia, probably won't, or it will choose to join physically with Russia, become some part of Russia, and that will be also to the neutral government to decide. But anyway, it will be peace. But the most important part, I think Ukraine will stay as a neutral country. Russia will want to have a country neutral by its border. They don't want to invade or take over fully Ukraine. They need a country that will be helpful for them, not only by their side on the borderline, but also be helpful for them in foreign organizations like UN, other OSCE, etc. So you have their voice and support, and you have a neutral government that will work together with Moscow. That's what I think it's going to lead to. That's what Trump needs to understand. They need to pull out of Ukraine. America is not gaining anything from this. This is just getting into total chaos. Zelensky doesn't have a voice. You pull out, you close down Starlink, it's over. You pull out your foreign CIA groups and other NSA, all the 60 intel agencies that the United States have out of Ukraine. And the New York Times showed that they were part of this war. They're the ones who were preparing the Ukrainian Nazi battalions, and they were fighting this war at the beginning when Russia went into Ukraine at the beginning. The CIA was part of this, and they still are. They're giving intel, maps, and satellite pictures to the Kiev regime today. Stop that. Agree on a neutral government, and you will have peace. I will tell you, and I will try to make everything from my end possible to make peace. I don't know where I'll be, but I will do whatever I can. And as soon as Ukraine at least has got some sovereignty for a couple of months, you will see this will be over. Zelensky will be over. He may be prosecuted, and I think he should be prosecuted for the crimes he did in Ukraine. He killed 3 of my friends were shot by the Secret Service of Ukraine, and more than 1,000 people were imprisoned more than thousands of people were in prison. And by the United Nations, it's over 50,000 political cases. Women are living in prisons, men are living in prisons for just believing in peace or wanting to be with Russia because Ukraine was part of Russia historically. It's not like Russia came into London and said, "Oh, it told everybody to be part of Russia." No, we were historically there. That's what we had so many times. That's why people did support Russia, wanted peace with Russia. It's not like Russia had propaganda there. It was Western propaganda of hatred toward Russia. That is the problem. Get that out. Trump needs to get that out. As what he did with the United States, get out of Ukraine, and you'll have peace, and he'll have full responsibility for that peace because he was the one who actually got the U.S. out of Ukraine, and that will be helpful for us.
To back you up on this, when Trump killed USAID, we uncovered all sorts of intelligence operations all around the globe that USAID was effectively working on in Romania and Georgia and Hungary, and also Ukraine, where 9 out of 10 media organizations were paid for by us.
90%, yeah, 90% of the media was owned by the American taxpayer money.
And it's like, what do you think those media organizations were saying? They obviously weren't pro-Russian. They were whipping up a fervor in a particular direction. I know this is painful for you, but why were your friends killed? What was the circumstances around their murders?
I can tell you that they were not political figures. They were not members of parliament. They were not, they were just regular people, political experts, going on television talking about peace. Peace for Ukraine. And one of them, I don't want to name his name publicly, but he got shot, but I can name it in any authorities that if they have questions. He got shot by the security service of Ukraine in front of his family. His child is disabled in a wheelchair, and he got shot right in front of his family when he opened the door to them. They shot him in his head. And that's it. So
and they did that because they were giving political analysis, not wanting war, not necessarily.
Yes. He was just wanting peace. He said, we should not fight with Russia. We should not have war. It's going to destroy Ukraine. That's what I've been talking about. They were actually also after me. I was put on a kill list in Ukraine. I was sanctioned by the Ukraine government. I was sanctioned by the U.S. first for going against the Biden administration, and by Pompeo and his henchmen, and falsely. And then I got sanctioned in Ukraine. Then I was put on a kill list in Ukraine for speaking about peace. For the last 4 or 5 years, I said Ukraine should get away from foreign influence. Ukraine is going to be led to become a battlefield. I was saying this in 2018-19. Ukraine is going to become a battlefield if we continue this politics, and that's what Ukraine is. And I was followed. I had to flee Ukraine not because of the war. I had to flee Ukraine because my own government wanted to kill me for coming out and saying I want peace. I'm not connected to any agencies or Russians or Europeans or whatever. I was just by myself talking about this everywhere. So was my friends. And now they cannot because they were shot. Unfortunately, they were very unfortunate because I told everybody they had to flee. But because I was more fortunate, I don't know why, but I could get out. The problem is this is what Ukraine has become, a total dictatorship like Gonzalo Lira. He was talking about the truth in Ukraine, and he got killed
in Ukraine.
He was an American citizen. Yeah. Can you imagine what they're doing to Ukrainians?
Yeah.
If he had an American passport, what happened to him? Can you imagine what's happened to Ukrainians?
And if
they're being tortured. I had friends who were tortured.
And Joe Biden didn't care. And Joe Biden didn't care.
Because they were backing this. Because they were the ones backing this. They were financing this. The USAID, they were financing all this nonsense in Ukraine. They were financing the Azov battalion. They were financing all these Nazis in Ukraine. That's why Zelensky needs to also take responsibility for this. And hopefully Biden and his administration will be also put accountable for what they did. For what the money...
No, I mean, really, right?
Because they were backing this. Because they were the ones backing this. They were financing this. The USAID, they were financing all this nonsense in Ukraine. They were financing the Azov battalion. They were financing all these Nazis in Ukraine. That's why Zelensky needs to also take responsibility for this. And hopefully Biden and his administration will be also put accountable for what they did. For what where the money went. Because a lot of money did not only settle down in Zelensky's pocket. More than 70% of that money that was lost was settled down in pockets of U.S. citizens. Basically, they stole from their own people. And one of the countries that was used for studying this money was the United Arab Emirates. Let America investigate United Arab Emirates, follow the dollars through that country. That will be interesting to find out what happened next, because a lot of Zelensky's henchmen are getting financed and money laundered through the United Arab Emirates, and it's not in the news. This information, I'm just telling what I know from the inside, and a lot of
Oops. I hope you guys are getting, that's what I wanted to say. The fact that the closed captioning is off. All right.
lot of Americans that were supporting this war, Vindman, all these crowds were being financed and laundered to those countries in the Middle East also. So that's, I'm not saying those countries are bad or responsible, but just that they used them. Maybe not, they even did, maybe did not even know why they were being used, but they were being used in a way to launder the blood money from Ukraine.
What I was looking for was okay, right here. So it was a report. I remember when it came out. It said 70% of the weapons to Ukraine were missing, like they didn't know where they were. And the Biden administration admitted that they were not tracking the money and the weapons as they were going to Ukraine. It was like they were throwing money and weapons out of helicopters. Tucker Carlson recently pointed out that many of these weapons were being put on the black market, was being sold either in Syria, in Gaza, in Mexico, like the drug cartels, for, I think he said 20 cents on the dollar. So if the weapon costs $100, they only pay in $20 for it, 20 cents on the dollar. Is that true? Is that something that you're aware of, just based on your contacts inside Ukraine and the way money and weapons have been flowing into the country?
Everything is being sold out. Everything. If you can sell out a person's life, you're going to sell out bullets and weapons, and that's what they did. And they were not just selling them to Syria and to drug cartels. They were even selling them to the Russians, offering them, getting offers through the military intelligence of Ukraine and the Secret Service of Ukraine. That's how bad it was. And I can tell you that I know that from a fact that they were doing this. And people were responsible for all that nonsense being happening in Ukraine with the Democratic Party. I said Vindman was one of the persons who was allegedly giving Ukraine help through Poland, but he was responsible for overseeing the weapon transfers in Ukraine also. And I know that for a fact. And also, those weapons were being, overseen by the military intelligence of Ukraine together.
So, as we're listening to this, can you understand why these governments don't want this shit out there?
With the United States government for selling those weapons on the side. That's what they were making money on. Not just laundering money, but making money on selling those weapons. And I can tell you that those weapons that were being sold out and the weapons that were so-called coming into Ukraine, they don't even match, because officially the warehouses were supposed to be full. The warehouses, this war was also to clean up the house. It was done especially for this, because they were cleaning up the warehouses, because a lot of the weapons on the U.S. government and former administrations were being sold off on the side, and that's why they needed this war to give away so-called Ukraine weapons by the list. One thing, officially they were giving them something else, and after that something else was being sold out to the third market. So this is what the reality was. Everybody was making money while Ukrainians and Russians were spilling blood. How bad you can get. And you're still coming out, and all these Europeans and Zelensky, and Zelensky knows everything about this. That's why I don't believe they're going to keep him alive in the West. That's why, and he understands this. That's why he needs to continue to fight, because that's his life. That's his life support for him. Because he knows too much. He was involved too much in this, and all his crowd around him. So this is how bad it is. And this is what Trump needs to understand and investigate. And I think he understands this, how bad this system thought that this war is not just about a war of national security. This war is about money, cleaning out somebody's, cleaning out the warehouses, saying that what we had before, just not to show that we were selling off these weapons before even the war. And this is from the American side. So this is how bad it is. And unfortunately, Ukraine was lured into this. Nobody listened to people like me who were talking. I was talking about this. I said for years and years and years that this should never happen. Ukraine should become sovereign and independent. Unfortunately, the coup was made for U.S. money. I was there in Maidan. I saw that money also coming in from the U.S. government. Trucks with the U.S.
Okay, so he says, I was there during Maidan. Now, this is where it gets good. Hopefully, you're still with me.
diplomatic plates coming in, giving away pallets with dollars and hryvnias and whatever. And there was this room stack of money in the trade union building in the downtown area of Kiev, and that's for a fact. And that's what U.S. was backing up this whole coup. That's what U.S. told Ukraine not to touch Crimea. It was basically to get Russians involved in this deeply. And with Crimea, it was good when the Americans told us not to at least shoot because we did not lose anybody there. It was a peaceful transition. Yeah, we lost Crimea. The people voted there to become part of Russia, but Ukraine then spilled blood. Nobody died, thank God, in that situation. And that's what they lured them in with a shiny coin. And then that's what they wanted to get Russia involved in this with Ukraine. So Ukrainians would hate Russia. They rose their pride, the hatred. There was all psychological warfare, and Ukrainians and the West was involved in this. That's why the people in the West so much listen to CNN and believe that crap, because it was psychological warfare. By the money of the USAID and NED, Nuland, and all the people that are Russophobes and hate Russia, and they think they're still living in the Cold War era.
Okay.
Peaceful transition. Yeah, we lost Crimea. The people voted there to become part of Russia, but Ukraine then spilled blood. Nobody died, thank God, in that situation. And that's what they lured them in with a shiny coin, and then that's what they wanted to get Russia involved in this with Ukraine. So Ukrainians would hate Russia. They rose their pride, the hatred. There was all psychological warfare, and Ukrainians and the West was involved in this. That's why the people in the West so much listen to CNN and believe that crap, because it was psychological warfare. By the money of the USAID and NED, Nuland, and all the people that are Russophobes and hate Russia, and they think they're still living in the Cold War era.
Just to nail this down, you said you were there when they were bringing in
right here
pallets of money, and they were using that money effectively to pay off the various actors on the ground in order to push the overthrow.
It was paying out for the buses, for the stage, for the fuel for the stage. Everything had to be for the groceries. Yeah, people were bringing out money on the side. That money was given away to people to pay off for their work. I personally got paid for being part of Maidan by actors of Maidan.
So that's the Maidan Revolution. It's not coming up. Should we turn I'll leave the closed captioning on, but just so you know.
Wow.
And that I can also testify to. I didn't talk about this before because it was too much on my plate with the Bidens involved and everything else. But people know that I was there and I can talk about this. I was there meeting with Nuland. I was
there with Nuland. I was there coordinating all the international work with the Pious, with the...
There coordinating all the international work with the Pious. And I know how it all happened. So unfortunately, that money, there was a huge room. Not a huge room, but like a room like 40 square meters, stacked with cash right to the top. And the cash was being taken away and given away when we're needed to pay off different...
Oh my God, this is terrible.
Actors and for the stage and for the buses to bring in people to transfer them there. So everything, it was not just a gathering of people to fight democracy. It was a payout, an organized crime situation to overthrow a legitimate president at that time who did make...
Does that remind you of anything? And when I say this, I mean something to do with the U.S. in January of 2021.
A lot of mistakes, and that's why people actually didn't want to. That's why I didn't want to support Yanukovych at that time. But now I believe if he stayed, we would have a war. And I'm going to be praying all my life for what I did, because it was a big mistake being part of that coup. I believe I just came back from the West. We're living there for more than 10 years, and I thought I'm going to be doing something good for Ukraine. But when I saw what was happening after the coup, because I was part of the government, I came out and started my fight for the truth in 2017. And since then, I'm still fighting and people are trying to destroy me, but I'm going to still tell the truth.
No, I understand. I mean, I understand the regret associated with being part of effectively a coup that led to this just chaos. Well, this is almost, I guess, like penance. This attempt to try to make up for it. No, I do get the dynamic. What was your communication with Victoria Nuland like? I
Oh,
mean, she
listen.
looks like a pit bull. She's
Sure.
seems a repugnant human being. What was your feeling from her?
So in case you don't know who Victoria Nuland is, she was the Undersecretary of State. Let's do this. Boy, she is one ugly dog. Listen to what he says about her.
From her? What was your communications with her like? If you can go into it.
Yeah, we had a meeting in December of 2013 in the Hyatt in Kiev. It was Ambassador Pyatt, Yatsenyuk.
Okay, so she said, or excuse me, he said in 2013, December, he had a meeting with her at the Hyatt in Kiev.
Was there, Klitschko was there, Technibok, Ambassador Shamshur, and I. The U.S. Embassy asked me to arrange all those so-called leaders of the opposition to meet Nuland there. I arranged them to come, and we had a meeting, and like there was a luncheon, but we didn't eat. For everybody, and she actually came in and started swearing at Yanukovych. Like she swears like I don't know, like a sailor. She's very aggressively.
She looks like it.
She hates everybody. She hates, but she loves herself very much. Like as most of people, but she loves herself so much that she doesn't care about anybody else, and she's ready to destroy the country from within. And so basically, she was swearing at Yanukovych that he didn't want to pick up the phone from her. But who was she? She was deputy assistant to the head of the Secretary of State, and he was the president of the country. So he doesn't have to pick up a phone from her. She's nobody to him on a level. So basically, she was very aggressive towards Yanukovych, and she was thinking about how to gather more people, how to push more aggressive moves against the acting president at that time, Yanukovych, what to do for the opposition at that time.
Wait. She said she was meeting with Yanukovych and working against Yanukovych.
Yes, she was meeting, talking to him over the phone, trying to convince him not to act aggressively against the crowd on Maidan. But at the same time, she was talking to the opposition.
Wow.
Face to face also.
And I'm believing that and that's a CIA government type PSYOP situation, color revolution, government overthrow. I believe that's what happened in 2121 in here. Talking to both sides, they set up our president, and then they came in with masked military and they put installed a new puppet.
So saying that she should act more aggressively towards him. So they were playing this bad good cop situation and trying to put like the pressure on Yanukovych from the crowd, saying, "No, but we were never involved."
Don't respond to the massive crowd that is trying to overthrow your government, and then go to the massive crowd and say, "We need to overthrow this government."
Yes, that's what basically was happening. And she was saying, and I remember the fact that she said, "I want to come on Maidan and give out bread from the stage." And that's what the cookie part happened.
So they had a stage, and she wanted to give bread out to people. I told her it's a bad idea.
And I told her it's a bad idea because bread and Jesus, they're not Jesus, thank God. And plus,
she's a Russian Jew, but plus it's not hygiene there to give out bread.
It's not hygiene there to give out bread from the street to the people. So we're not in the Roman times. So whether something packed or hygienic, and then Ambassador Pyatt confirmed, they supported them and said, "Oh yeah, that's what the cookie part came out from." So this is what happened during that meeting in December.
So they gave out cookies to get people to, okay.
Very aggressive woman. I never saw a woman swear so much in my life. Even
Yeah.
people on the streets, when you talk to, they're more intelligent than Nuland. And she's a very Russophobic woman. I don't know what happened to her on the Russian ship that she was in the '90s, but she
Oh,
hates Russia very badly. Not even in a good way, but she hates Russia. Not even thinking about it. She just with all her force and body, she understands that she can make money on this, and that's what I think why she's
Well, I
doing
read
this
a
on this.
memoir. Apparently, a Russian peed on her when she was 6 years old, and she never forgave him.
Oh, okay, there you go. We have World
I'm
War III
totally
because
joking. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's true.
I thought you were saying the truth because I wouldn't believe it if somebody ever told me. Wow. Now we have World War III because somebody in her 6 years old did something to that, and
Isn't that
but
explains
I'm
it?
saying, but she's very undiplomatic, and
Yeah.
she's smart, but she's very undiplomatic. She's very aggressive, and she hates everybody. I think around her. Only she
Had,
loves herself and her husband, who's making money and made money on the coup in Ukraine.
did you meet her again before the coup took place in February?
No, I met her only in December, and I wasn't part of the security decoy with Senator McCain came. I was involved in his coming to Kiev also, and Chris Murphy, who went against me in 2020, saying that good that they sanctioned me, even though I was there when he was on the stage. So everything, all these crowd, they don't believe what they're saying. They don't believe in Ukraine. They're only using Ukraine, and I think they even hate Ukraine. They know that Ukraine's going to lose, but they say, why not use them? They're idiots. Their government sold off. Why not use them? So that's why they hate also Russia so much because and Belarus because they're independent and sovereign, didn't break under their rule or didn't break under their authority. And the same as Georgia. Georgia didn't break under them and say we will not fight Russia, we will not be anti-Russia, and
Actually,
they
Georgia
basically
did.
at one point didn't, but now I'm
Yeah.
saying not. Right
Yeah.
now. I'm saying about right now what is happening. At one point it
Yeah.
was Saakashvili, yes, but now Georgia said no. So this is what we have today. Ukraine totally collapsed. All these guys are not going to pay a price for all what they did. Everybody is trying to become anti-Russia or trying to go this way in Europe now and build a force to undermine Trump's peace negotiations with Putin. And this is the reality. And we were talking about this for months and months and months. And I said this before to you in couple and other shows that Zelensky and the Europeans are trying to undermine Trump and his peace talks with President Putin and try to continue this war. And this is what's happening today because the globalists have no other choice to continue this war to make more money and to cover up their crimes.
What do you think when you see liberals, either in Europe or the United States, claim we care about Ukraine, we love Ukraine, but we have to support Ukraine to the last dead Ukrainian? Like, how does that make you feel when you see these people claim not necessarily ownership, but claim as if they are backing Ukrainian interests while watching it be fundamentally destroyed? Like, it's so unrealistic. It's
They're,
so
they're,
bizarre.
they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites because whatever they're saying is destroying Ukraine more
Yeah,
and more.
yeah.
They could have stopped this. Johnson could have not gone come into Kiev and continued, and we would have peace negotiations in Istanbul. There's blood on his hands, and there's blood on all those liberals' hands who want to continue this war. Because first of all, how can you fight a nuclear country and win? You cannot. That's one. That's basically just you have to understand that they believe in their own lies that Russian army is bad or it's corrupt or it's destroyed or it's still in the post World War II era that they're going in and with old tanks and the
I mean, it's like, my God, post World War II, it's 2025 for fuck's sake. And this is all because of that damn Victoria Nuland, Obama, Biden. She got her start. She did work with Cheney for a while, but it's just like Nuland, Blinken, Biden. These are bad people. I mean, honestly, guys, when you look at this picture, I mean, wow. Do you think that just look at her? She is one evil lady, boy. I mean, she is just mean and evil. I don't know if I spelled that right. And the more time that went by, the worse it became. So they bomb everything out, and then she's giving cookies? Ugh. Here, have a sandwich. Hope you don't die. Oh, and there's that piece of shit John Kerry. You guys, this is just bad news, man. This is probably some shit for himself. He's not giving anything away. He's just taking. Thank God we didn't have him as president. You people wonder why I voted for Bush? Ooh, there's the face of evil. Oh my God. Just the face of evil. Oh. Ugh, to think that the government is paying her salary. Holy shit.
The Soviet Union around, but no, it's one of the strongest armies now. And actually, it upgraded itself within the last 2 years of this war, and is now much more powerful than any army in the world, having the experience of the war of the 21st century, hand-in-hand combat on the ground. So their army is much, much stronger. And the liberals believe in their own lies that they can win Russia. They failed to destroy Russia and break it apart in the first 3 months of the war, and they have to understand. That's why they're so angry. And then they continue this war to make money on this, and so people in Europe and over the globe will not take them out of power, because as people start understanding that this war was for nothing, and it's not Afghanistan or even the Middle East where people are dying and it's a great, great tragedy, but this is a war between a nuclear nation, the largest gas and oil reserve country in the world, $75 trillion worth of resources reserved in this country, and has a future more than anybody else in Europe and the West. And they understand that this is a country you cannot fight with. So at the same time, they believe in their lies that they can break it apart, and that is the biggest problem. When you start believing in your own lies, you start to fail and you start to lose. And this is what the West, the liberals, are losing right now. That's why they lost in America, thank God. With these elections, and Trump came back to power, maybe he's going to make some common sense back to the world. And hopefully he will understand that this second term, that he will have to do everything he can to make peace. And it's going to be one of maybe the hardest challenges in his life to do this. But he will prevail if he understands what is against him and what is the deep state against him doing in Ukraine, that he has to get them out and not let them undermine him. And the Europeans, I think within the next 5 years, will also change and have conservative government, because the liberal government failed their own people, and Europe is now falling apart because of their so-called liberal ideas and agenda to continue this war in Ukraine, because they believe in their own lies. And Europe is now totally in total destruction. Zero growth economics in France, zero growth economics in Germany. The leaders there are fully controlled by the globalists, and that's where we are today. The gas that they're buying from the U.S. is 3 times more expensive. Yeah. And as I said, now the main idea is U.S. and Russia needs to sit down on a table, make a good work for them between themselves. I've been talking about the Arctic for the last 3-4 years. That's a thing that they will hopefully agree on and work together. Latin America, they will agree and work together. I think that's Russia's ready to compromise. The problem is the warmongers don't want to compromise because they have no other choice, because they're fighting for their lives now.
And they've cognitively committed to this war. I mean, like it's astonishing to me to watch these guys in a room by themselves talk about all of the things that they're going to do, even though they had no power to do it. It's bizarre. There's something that you said. You said you were told not to touch Crimea. Who told you not to touch Crimea?
The U.S. government at the time. The Pentagon.
In the U.S. government.
I was already an advisor to the first deputy prime minister of Ukraine, overseeing law enforcement and Ukrainian intel. And we were talking to the deputy head of the Pentagon, the director of CIA, Brennan, and national security advisors within the White House, and also the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Zentas, all that crowd. We were talking to different delegations, and they gave an order to the acting so-called president at the time, Turchinov, not to fire in Crimea, and they basically tried to tell us that the green men in Crimea were now Russian military, to give them more evidence that they're Russian military, even though the U.S. knew that was happening. I was in contact with the White House in February 2014, there was a delegation from the Ukrainian diaspora. They called me from Biden's office and said Ukraine is going to lose Crimea, and this was February 20th of 2014. And I didn't believe it at the time. The Americans knew, and they told us not to get involved. So they tried to lure this in to get Russia involved, and they used this situation to try to make the civil war between Russia and Ukraine, and in Donbass, the civil war between Russians and Ukrainians, and to build up the hatred towards Russia, that Russia took something from Ukraine away, even without any bullets fired.
Wait, no how did they know? I'm sorry to interrupt. How did they know that Russia was going to take Crimea?
We have to understand that Crimea was always a sacred place for the Russian fleet.
Oh, no, I get that. I'm just saying, how did America know in advance that Russia was going to take it?
I think you should ask the Americans this. They were. I just got a phone call from Biden's office, from the diaspora that was there talking to him during the coup in Ukraine, and that's what they were told. So I don't know who knew. I think the intel was working. The U.S. intel also works. One of the strongest intel groups is the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese now, I think. So they are doing their job. So they know what's happening. And so they understood that this is going to be the next phase of Russia's going to do. They're going to try to protect their people there, because there's a lot of what happened is, within the last 30 years, Ukraine did nothing to invest in Crimea or in Eastern Europe or Eastern Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Ukraine elites and government in Crimea actually put it into a total almost destruction. There was no roads. The Crimea was falling apart. The hotels there, the government-owned hotels, were falling apart. You could not have lived there. Like, basically, it's all a total destruction. No investments. A lot of people holding Russian passports in that territory, and a lot of people, more than 90%, they're saying that they are Russian. And so this was the situation that Ukraine was becoming too. So Ukraine lost Crimea because they didn't do anything within their 30 years of independence to keep Crimea part of Ukraine. If they could have invested into politics, invested into political strategy there, invested into show that Ukraine is good, invested into roads, infrastructure, maybe people wouldn't want to leave. But Ukraine didn't do anything. The same thing with Donbass. Ukraine only used Donbass to feed itself with the coal and then the mineral.
I'm going to listen to the rest of this on my own. If there's anything else that I think is really good, I'll share it with you guys. But I thought this was very interesting. Okay. Wait, is my mic on?